Hi, I'm Alistair, the grumpy CIO. And what am I grumpy about this week, or generally talking about this week? Moral standards in the workplace. Heavy stuff, right? This week, beginning of June 2023, whole load of news about Philip Schofield, but also continuing things about how to approach the war in Ukraine and general ethics and standards in the workplace. Now, we at ShipShape, I'm proud to say, operate a business to a standard that I think we can be proud of. But as a small company, and if you're a startup, I think you can do and you will do, and I think it does matter. Before I go to that, though, a bit of a timeline and history. What's happened in my lifetime? Old bugger, started working in the 90s, going through into the early noughties. And I've largely worked on things like trading floors. Now, trading floors weren't exactly the most PC environments in the world. It is before my time, but only just before my time, that there were strippers on the trading room floor. There was certainly a whole load of sexist commentary on the trading room floor, even when I got there. But working in banks and a banking environment, things changed quite rapidly in the early noughties. A particular bank which I worked at, Romania, worked at a few, remains unmentioned. A gentleman, did a boisterous act, got fired. Quite an interesting case because actually he didn't want to do it. There were some drinks after work, alcohol was involved, and he was um, encouraged into a rugby style, sort of rugby bonding style act. He very much didn't want to do it and was basically bullied into it, but he got fired. So this kind of really took everybody back. The sexist commentary stopped on the floor. It was a real suppression moment when it came down. The thing was, it was only weekly put to bed. There was only a weak lid on it. It was still there. I, as an ingenue coming in, didn't know much about this. I just kind of thought this is how everybody's acting, quite normally and quite reasonably. But when a particular exec was required to sign off a particular document, a colleague of mine, up to that point a respected colleague of mine, saw a female colleague with the documents that the exec had to sign off and whispered to me, "Come on, give him a blowy." We were in Australia, and I was stunned and shocked that he would actually say that. Now, he whispered it rather than talked it out loud because he knew he wasn't supposed to say it, but it was suppressed, and the point was it hadn't actually changed. So when you actually don't allow things to come into the workplace or come into a school, comes that later as well, are you actually making change or are you suppressing things? In some reason, you might say you're just suppressing things because whilst you might have some Twitter sphere outrage, or whilst the Me Too movement might have some victories, for example, Harvey Weinstein, being put where he belongs. Also, you have bursting back out of the seams in the last few years, Voldemort, as I call him, the person under Romania in Romania under investigation, who I refuse to name or even show an unpixelated version of his face, because it will just add to his own social media feed. But if you've been following British news, you know who I'm talking about. So this has come out, whereas this stuff was suppressed over time, but it's clearly just bursting back out. So does it matter if you actually just suppress this stuff? Will any change actually happen? I argue yes, because my mother, God bless her, Northern Irish heritage, and her mother before her, refused to allow me and my brother and other people to be infected with the bigotry that was flowing through at the time. I remember going to see my family when I was 7, and they were on the Proddy part of the world, and they were talking about the damn Catholics. And I was absolutely shocked because my mother had never spoken this way. And these ideas were completely new to me. And they didn't stay in my head. My mother wouldn't let it happen. So by the time I grew up, it's simply not there. Whereas other negative ideas that will come up, sexist ideas, racist ideas, that you expunge yourself with over time, kind of like 80s song lyrics, they're still stuck there in the back of it. So I think by not allowing these things through, maybe I'm already ruined, but my daughter won't be, and she will grow up in a better world. So I think it's worthwhile happening. Just by way of further example, you can't burn a witch nowadays. Good idea at the time, apparently, sounds utterly ridiculous now, cruel, inhuman, and stupid. So, why has the workplace got anything to do with this? And also bring schools into this, because the places we spend a lot of time, as you know, through our years, are schools and the workplace. Schools are definitely on the front line of this stuff. Schools are expected to teach morals and ethics. And as my wife and I have been going around to look for schools for our daughter, it's been a strong part that they have safeguarding officers, they have ethics actually taught by one of the teachers, and this is now part of actually teaching children a way and a code of living. Really, really controversial, really hard to do, because as you're trying to agree a code and standard of ethics, whose code and standard of ethics, you're always going to offend someone. It's hard to do. It's really difficult for teachers to do. And the thing that teachers are finding hard to deal with is Voldemort, who is the person in Romania there, because how do they deal with that? There are also other topics that are incredibly hard to deal with. The British Empire. How do you teach the British Empire? Do you just ignore it? And certainly I know from some other history teachers I was talking to, for a large period, we just stopped teaching it. Whereas when I was at school, the only thing that got caught in GCSE history was British history from 1815 to 1924, i.e. the bits where we won. Completely changed now. For a workplace, you will often talk about ethics and standards, and we talk about our values, but there'll be the stuff like I showed up on the screen here. There'll be principle, reliability, trust, responsibility. These are the things that are considered business ethics, but we don't talk about other things. Why not? And how? And does it make a difference? Well, I think it does, and it's important, and it helps you as a small company to have kind of a standard. At ShipShape, we do talk about having the right thing to do. When we talk about how to treat ourselves, how to treat all of our team, ourselves and all of our team, but also how to treat the people we engage with as business partners, to how to treat our customers, are you doing the right thing? It doesn't have to be loud, you don't have to talk and be brash about it, but you do have to be continuous. An example is where our quiet but continuous position on the Ukrainian conflict. Now, this is very personal for a number of us, not least me. My wife is Russian-Ukrainian. She has Ukrainian native-speaking family, Russian native-speaking family, all from Ukraine. This is a very, very direct part of the conflict. It's very personal for her and very painful. Other members of our staff also impacted as well. When the conflict started in February 2024, we actually made a deliberate decision as a business that we were going to engage some people from Ukraine to work with us, and we did so, and we have 3 members of staff of the ShipShape team live in Ukraine now. So we made this, and we will do quiet things like this for our voice. We don't do it loudly. It's not a big brash thing, particularly, I don't want my wife's family to get in too much trouble, but it is part of the position that we have. So sexist behaviour, no. Racist behaviour, no. Small items like this, yes. We have a standard of how we act. Business ethics are considered easier. It's like make sure you pay your staff on time and treat their financial matters with diligence, respect. They're kind of an easier box to be in, but also we have a standard as well, and I think that's very important to us. And I think as a small business, you can, perhaps easier than a large business, where it just gets lost in, are we at risk of litigation from this? It's the kind of question that comes up. So the Schofield thing that came up there the last few weeks, any big company I've ever been in, the question wouldn't be, was he right or was he wrong? But what's the litigation risk and what's the reputation risk? As a smaller company, you can actually start off with, what do we as a group agree is the right thing to do? You can largely agree with each other, as ShipShape do, but more interesting is when you don't agree with each other. And we have quite passionate conversations about what we do or don't agree over, and we come to a position together as a company. Thanks for watching. I am Alistair, the CIO of www.shipshape.vc. Come to us to optimize your investor outreach. We are the free venture capital investor search engine.